Greetings, YouTube. Sporting my Jetpack Comic Store t-shirt in Rochester, New Hampshire. Check them out, they're pretty cool. Today's video is about my latest book, which is Blinded by the Right by David Brock. The second line is The Conscience of an Ex-Conservative. This book is part memoir, part politics. Mr. Brock started out as a liberal. He went to Berkeley College, a very liberal kind of place, and in the 1980 election he voted for Jimmy Carter. But as he was exposed to Berkeley, he saw what could be best described as the radical left, the really hardcore left liberals. And frankly, like any fringe group, no matter what they belong to, they can be a little off-putting. And he was actually disenfranchised, alienated by their actions. He thought that they were not living up to what the concept of liberal could be, because they were being so politically correct, because they were being so much, well, if it's a conservative speaking, we don't want to listen to it. When in actuality, the most important speech to protect is the speech you don't agree with. And Mr. Brock believed that, as I do. And over time, he became really unhappy with the liberal stance. He was a journalist, he worked for the school paper, and he discovered that when he wrote about things that would be considered a fairly conventional liberal stance, it was viewed as being far too conservative by the Berkeley School, and he liked the notoriety. And as time went on, he gradually began to write more and more conservative pieces, until eventually he got a reputation for being a conservative writer. And in 1984, he voted for Ronald Reagan. Now, Mr. Brock is gay. At Berkeley, he was pretty much out and about it. He didn't hide the fact that he was gay. He lived with someone. And a gay man voting for Ronald Reagan is a little bit like a black person voting for David Duke. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what Ronald Reagan's personal feelings were about homosexuals. They probably weren't all that positive. But he was in bed with the religious right. And they have made their views on that topic very publicly known. So I cannot fathom why, even if Mr. Brock thought that the conservative movement was the one he should follow, why he voted for Ronald Reagan. But as time went by, he got more and more conservative. He began to write articles and began to work for conservative newsletters and new magazines. And eventually he got himself involved in the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas case. And he wrote a book called The Real Anita Hill, where he savaged her. He tore her apart publicly. He committed character assassination. He later worked on Troopergate, which was a controversy about during Bill Clinton's administration about some troopers that had been his security while he was a governor, revealing all kinds of naughty, dirty laundry about Bill Clinton that actually wasn't true at all. But Mr. Brock used this as, again, a method of character assassination. Mr. Brock essentially became a character assassin on the payroll of the neocon movement. He got well known for this. He got drawn into their circle. He went to dinners where Henry Kissinger was a guest. Okay, he was let into the fold. And eventually he began to realize what a hollow philosophy it was. And as he began to drift away, partly because he was publicly outed as being gay, he began to realize just how nasty the neocon movement was. He'd gotten tired of having to be in the closet for the neocon movement. He couldn't be who he wanted to be, even though he kept encountering gay members of the neocon movement who were also in the closet. So the hypocrisy was high. And he wrote a book about Hillary Clinton. And the Hillary Clinton book was much less vicious. And because of that, the neocon movement wasn't happy. And as they saw him as backpedaling when he was actually trying to be more reasoned, more balanced, more of a journalist, and not a character assassin. Things just got work for Mr. Brock, and eventually he had to divorce himself completely from the movement and gradually drift back to a liberal point of view, because they most closely represented his view of the world, and he voted for Al Gore. Of course, that failed. But It made his claim to fame as being a liberal once again. Now, the book is interesting. There are parts of it that I thought were a little dry because he names names. He names lots and lots of names. And sometimes there were paragraphs that were almost nothing but names, which I find a little dull. But it's an interesting book for both liberals and conservatives. For liberals, it shows you what you can do wrong, how you can disenfranchise and alienate people, which is not what you want to do, especially if they're well-educated journalists. And it's good for conservatives because it can show you what the conservative, and particularly the neocon branch of the conservative movement, is willing to do to get their point across. They're willing to lie, cheat. They're willing to assassinate someone's character. They're willing to hunt down a president for almost two entire administrations to try to get him out of office, instead of actually putting forth positive legislation that would have helped America. Who knows what Bill Clinton could have accomplished if the Republicans had decided to work with him as opposed to spend all of their time trying to destroy him. I enjoyed the book, and I recommend it for anyone who's into politics.